Okay, so Julia Deckman is a self-taught visual artist. Her studio is actually at our Creative Mornings headquarters, Redux. And so you can check her out there. And like you saw in the beginning, Redux is opening back up. So you can buy her artwork and see her studio. But we are going to welcome Julia Deckman to tell you a little bit about her own story.
Thank you. All right, let's see if I can do this. All right. Hi. My name's Julia and I'm insecure, but I feel comfortable being here and talking to you about it today. I'm an artist here in Charleston. I keep my studio space at Redux. I also serve on the board at Redux as the artist representative. I just help give a renter's perspective to our board for like decision making as an arts nonprofit. And I'm represented by the Miller Gallery. It's an awesome contemporary gallery downtown on East Bay Street. So you can see my work there. And I'm currently pursuing my dreams and feeling super happy and fulfilled. But that definitely hasn't always been the case. And it's pretty recently that I've been able to say that and feel that. So I'm going to talk about that a lot today. There's a lot that can be said about this topic of insecure. I think it's something that probably everyone grapples with in some way or another on some level. I also think it's something that people experience in really different ways throughout their life. So it's a broad and diverse subject, but there's some insecurity is something that I've struggled with since I can remember. So maybe my perspective is a little intense, but I'm going to get personal today and hope that I can shed some light on this topic in new ways for you guys. So today, I'd like to talk about this in two parts. I'm first going to talk about how insecurities played a major role in my overall life's journey, and then how they also still currently affect my art practice today. I just want to say at the top, though, that I'm so thankful for my personal journey. I don't feel sorry for myself or bitter about any past struggles. I, in fact, feel super fortunate and privileged. I love the perspective that I have now. And I wouldn't be where I am today without my past experiences. So I just wanted to voice that at the beginning of this talk because the nature of this can be a little bit deprecating. So let's start at the beginning. I am originally from Annapolis, Maryland. I'm my mom's first child. My mom and I lived with my grandfather until I was like 3 or 4. And it was in Pop-Pop's house where I first began creating art and getting really messy and making friends with all of the bugs and animals that I came across. From day one, I was an artist, but since I was a toddler, I just didn't have any self-awareness, and I didn't have a concept of how important that would end up being to me and my soul. I eventually became a big sibling to my little brother, first my little brother and my sister. And then with my parents' divorce and remarriages, I gained a stepsister and a little half-sister. And I would say my most important and defining role to date has been that of oldest Deckman and big sister to my siblings. So much of my childhood was framed around me being a good and responsible leader and example for them. And I just took it really seriously and perhaps used it as an excuse not to like focus on my own struggles. And as I grew, I shifted my focus away from myself. My parents divorced when I was like 8 or so, and the shift away became more intensified as I felt I was like the liaison between my households, and I was the one constant for my brother and my sister's daily life. And that's probably something that a lot of oldest children of divorce could relate to. I just took it as a job and I took it to heart, and it's my most favorite role in my life. But when I was a kid, I think I just got a little lost in it, and I didn't have the self-awareness to reconnect back to myself. Um, I was always an emotional and empathetic child, and I wasn't in touch with what truly mattered to me, so it just exacerbated my insecurities and anxieties. And I think this is a really important point to make about this topic. The further you get from yourself, the worse your insecurities can become. And the more you tune into who you are and what you want and what's important to you, the stronger you can feel. And this is a lesson I'm still working on today. I'm still getting to know myself. I will for the rest of my life. I don't think it's ever going to stop. So by the time I got to my adolescence, I just didn't know myself at all. I was wholly concerned about what others thought about me, what others wanted from me, what others were doing. So by the time I was in high school and eventually making decisions about college and things that were going to affect the rest of my life, I was completely consumed by others. My personal passions weren't even a part of my consciousness or decision making at all. My self-worth was based on grades and accolades and relationships and social status and expectations of others. So putting my value in all of these outside forces made me feel weak and out of control. And I was just basically emotionally and spiritually dependent on others. And I was limited and confined in this bubble that I put myself in, but I had no idea I did that. I'm able to say all these things in hindsight. This is not something I was aware of at the time at all. I very luckily found my way to the College of Charleston. I fell head over heels in love with this incredible city. My mom and I called Charleston my city soulmate, but I unfortunately remained out of touch with myself. I basically created this generic life to-do list with these goals that I felt I should accomplish, and I didn't even entertain the idea of pursuing art in college or for a career at all. It just didn't enter my mind as an option, because it wasn't a path that was considered, normal or viable. And I was just too insecure to see the bigger picture of my life and what I really wanted from it. I graduated from CFC in '07, and I moved back to Annapolis to reunite with my family and begin life in the quote unquote real world. Before I knew it, I was in my late 20s, and even though I was accomplishing everything on my to-do list, I was completely unfulfilled by this 9-to-5 life that I had put myself in. I was very depressed and constantly anxious, but I just kept thinking things would change when I could get to the next step on my list and cross that off. Again, this is hindsight. In the moment, I was clueless. In 2012, everything changed. I had the opportunity to move back to Charleston for a job. My parents at the time actually owned a clothing boutique in Annapolis. They loved Charleston so much and visiting me at college so much that they decided that downtown Charleston would be an awesome place for another location, and I was going to be the manager. Unfortunately for my dad and stepmom, the store didn't survive the high rent on King Street, but I believe that this move saved my life. So I hope that they feel it was worth the sacrifice. Moving back to Charleston, my city soulmate woke me up. I've shared that before. I've said that before. I just don't know how else to describe this feeling. But it really felt like I had been asleep my entire adult life, and being back in this city that I loved so much gently woke me up out of this fog that I had been in. And I began realizing how out of touch with myself I really was. And I realized that I had been making all of my life decisions based on my insecurities. And my world and my options were limited by this narrow view I had of myself and of my potential. I was my own worst enemy. My anxieties and my uncertainties limited my perspective, and it was time that I started challenging them, and I needed to make decisions in spite of my insecurities. So Charleston gave me the courage to start challenging my insecurities and make really difficult decisions and changes in my life. So despite the fact that I didn't have any formal art education or training, despite the fact that I was already surrounded by these incredible and established artists here that exist here in Charleston, I knew that I needed to start pursuing my creative passions. I needed to stop comparing myself to everyone else and confining myself within my insecurities. So I basically hit reset on my life and I began my art practice. It's been a really long road, but to be where I am today and speaking with all of you, keeping a studio at Redux, and I'm represented by this amazing contemporary art gallery, I feel like I won the lottery, genuinely. There's still a whole lot that I want to accomplish. I'll never be done, but just the fact that my life is made up of these things that are actually truly important to me and my soul, it's a huge gift. And I'm really glad that I have the perspective that I do, so that I can appreciate every moment of this gift. So that's my life journey to date, and I'm really thankful that I no longer allow my insecurities to screw up my priorities. I know what's important to me, but insecurities are still something that I grapple with in my everyday life, and especially in my art practice. I'm a self-taught artist, so what that means is that I didn't go to art school or major in the arts. So basically, I don't have any formal education, and this is my greatest source of my professional insecurities. I worry that people won't take me seriously, whether that's a client or a gallery owner or whoever I may be meeting in a professional capacity. I also find myself like second guessing my approach all the time and what mediums I choose to use, and especially in the beginning, I was just really self-conscious and not at all confident about my work. But I've learned some really valuable lessons, so I don't let these feelings and insecurities stop me from creating and pursuing my career, whereas they would have in the past. I also don't let my insecurities prevent me from reaching out and asking for advice, help, or guidance. Maybe I don't have a formal education, but I have had countless teachers and mentors who have taught me really invaluable lessons throughout my career. But these lessons can't just pop up and happen. You have to, make yourself vulnerable and seek them out and put yourself out there, which can be really hard. And this was something that I couldn't do until I faced my insecurities, and I'm so glad I did. Insecurity can be balanced by your overall perspective. So now that I have worked at my career for over 5 years, I have this history that I'm able to look back and reflect on, and I have made accomplishments that actually matter to me. When I reflect on this new perspective, I find I can feel a little more confident in myself and in my practice. I can see how my work has actually evolved and grown and strengthened over time. And I can recognize that my dedication and perseverance helped me get there, and it just helps lift me up in low moments that I may have. Anxiety and depression are both things I struggle with daily, and they certainly feed into my insecurities. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that. These feelings can be a bit of a roller coaster. So like some days are wonderful and I feel really strong and light and hopeful. And then other days I feel weighted down and low for seemingly no reason. So I find that if I allow myself to get caught up in these low moments and fester in my insecurity, my work itself slows down and my work itself becomes hesitant. And then the process itself isn't fun anymore. It's frustrating. So I try to be mindful of that. When I feel like I'm in one of these low periods, I've started reflecting on specific things that I'm feeling insecure about. If I pay attention to my discomforts, I can usually find some little kernels of wisdom in there. More often than not, I'm just getting caught up in comparison, the vicious cycle of comparison and just endlessly scrolling through screens and pining for the things that I haven't yet achieved. I just need to bring the focus back to myself and my story and my practice. What I find most helpful in my career and in my practice, and ultimately helps me overcome being insecure, has been finding a really supportive community. I'm really, really shy. It was really difficult to push myself outside of my comfort zone and network. But and now that I've done it, I can say it's the single most important thing that I've done for myself. And it's not only professionally, but personally. The creative community here in Charleston has been so wonderful and welcoming and inspiring. Not only do I get to meet people and establishments that are interested in my work or business in a professional way, I have also made true and deep friendships. I'm living a real and engaged life in my Charleston community, and it's been so rewarding and fulfilling. So with that, to wrap up, I just want to say thank you all for the opportunity to share my story and for this gift of a full circle moment. Creative Mornings was actually the very first resources I began using to network with my Charleston community. It helped give me the inspiration and courage to continue with my work, even while I was still chained to various other jobs and feeling super limited. I made a point to participate in Creative Mornings, and it in turn helped me open my worldview and find the potential within myself. So thank you so much for being part of this program, and I promise it will give back to you.
Thank you, Julia. I appreciate you being so open and honest with us here today, and it was really nice to see your journey, and you've come a long way, and I think you'll be happy to scroll through the chat and see all the nice things that people are saying about you. But we're going to switch over to a Q&A, and I'm going to read you out some questions from the chat, and I'm hoping that you can answer them.
All right.
So there are quite a few. So Lex wants to know, how did you make the transition to becoming a self-taught artist? So impressed by your work.
Oh, thank you. So as you can see from my childhood pictures, art is just something I've always done. And I didn't take it